we need to remove ourselves from this idea of taking a wrong step or taking a right step or it being what's expected or whatever it is. It's a process of trial and error. And there's no such thing as failure because all we get is information that we can then use to take the next step.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, friend. Welcome to this show. And I have a new best friend with me. Her name is Jennifer. And Jennifer's here to help us get unstuck. I know there's plenty of times throughout our life cycles that we feel stuck in a moment or stuck at a time or just in that process of where we're really not sure how to take that new step, or do we want to? And so how do we create that next chapter in our life? So Jennifer, the information about you is in the show notes, so we can just jump right in and get started right now with how do I create that next chapter in my life?
Well, creating the next chapter in your life, depending on from where you're coming from and what you want for your life, is really all about creating a connection with yourself to make sure that you are honoring who you are, what's important to you, and what it is that you want for your life. And most people, especially women, are very disconnected from themselves on their to-do list. They're at the very bottom of the list, the part where the cobwebs and the dust bunnies are, because they're so busy taking care of everyone and everything. And then when they find themselves in transition or things are changing or they're starting to consider what's next, they realize that they have no idea what they want or maybe even who they are because they've been so busy, like I said, taking care of everyone and everything or, living up to some titles or roles that they play. Maybe they're a career woman or a stay-at-home mom or, a sister or wife. And we tend to, most of us tend to look at ourselves that way in one of those roles. But that becomes who we are, but it's not really who we are. So when we start digging into a connection with ourselves is where we can uncover the things that are most important to us.
What if we feel totally disconnected from ourselves? Because I know there was a time in my life where I kind of felt robotic. I was just going through the motions and doing all the to-dos. And there wasn't a Lara Jane. She was lost.
Well, 100%. I mean, I can relate to that. When I was forced with having to reinvent my life at the age of 50, I realized I had no idea who I was. Like I had been so busy following, the expectations of other people and just busy doing that when it all fell apart, I was like, who's the woman underneath this? I had no idea who she was. And that's what I mean about building a connection with yourself. Because just like we would build a relationship with somebody else, like we would take time to get to know them, we might spend time with them, we might ask them questions to get to understand them better. So just like we would do with other people, we have to start doing that with ourselves. And I always say to start small, like the smallest question, right? Like I don't mean, meditate for an hour. Maybe it's sit for 5 minutes with your coffee in a quiet house before everybody gets up and just ask yourself, how are you feeling today? What would you like this day to be? What would you like for breakfast? So just having very, very small questions to yourself. And then over time, as that relationship builds, the questions expand and you get to know more and more about the person who's inside. Because for most of us, we have drowned out our own inner voice for the majority of our lives. And there's a voice in there that's talking to us always. And what we need to do is get still enough to hear it.
Well, how do we get still enough to hear it? I definitely have that voice. It's like, I remember when I sat down and had the conversation of, why am I going to church every Sunday? It was what I'm supposed to do. That's how you get to heaven. And then you go, but is that what I want? Not that I'm heaven's good or bad, but when do we really sit back and say, is this what I want?
Exactly. That's exactly it, is to get curious about ourselves, right? To question the things that we find ourselves doing out of expectation or just out of rote behavior, right? Like, why am I doing this right now? Do I want to be doing this? Is it making me happy? What if I didn't do it? Right? And just to start exploring those questions. And one of the things I highly recommend to everybody is to get a journal and write down the questions that come up for you and to write down the answers. Because for most of us, I don't know about you, but it's true for me, it's busy up there in my head. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of noise, right? And it can be hard to kind of get perspective on things. But when you give it a place, these questions a place to live that's not inside your head, you will shift the perspective on the questions. Like you'll come back and read that question, a day, week, a month, and you'll be like, huh, that's interesting. I wonder why I asked myself that question. Or here's my answer to that question. Right. So it's about really getting curious, like just literally challenging the things that we know to be true about ourselves, about a situation, challenging our own behavior, questioning ourselves, and seeing where it leads us.
Could it be as simple as why is my favorite color orange?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
why? And then you get to, because it's happy. It's bold. It's a sunflower. It's
Right.
what is it about the one thing that you thought of? What's the top thing off the top of your head? That's the quick, easy one, where
Right.
you can start looking now. But superficial's one thing. How do we dig deep?
Digging deep is a process, right? Like we can't go from 0 to 100 right off the bat. When I was at the lowest part of, when my life fell apart and I was like, at the lowest part of my reinvention journey, I would ask myself the simplest questions like, what do you want for lunch? Right? Like, what do you feel like eating right now? And sometimes it would be like, I want a cookie. And I would honor that voice, whatever it said. And then over time, the questions got bigger. I got to know myself better. I started hearing myself for the first time. But we can't go from 0 to 100. It's just like, if you meet a stranger on the street, now all of a sudden you literally jump into the deep questions. They're going to go like, oh my God, whoa, right? Exactly the same things with ourselves. We just we overwhelm ourselves and we can't cope with it. So I always say, take the tiniest possible step in the direction that you want to go. So, as I mentioned, maybe it's sitting down for 5 minutes with a cup of coffee and just sitting in silence, no TV, no phone, no book, no nothing, and just sit there and see what comes up. Like, no agenda, no nothing, just see what comes up. It might be, I'm super uncomfortable right now. I don't know what to do with my hands. This coffee is really good. Like it could be any of that. And just like honor that. That's the start of the dialogue. That's the start of connecting with what's happening inside you. And there is no right or wrong to it, right? There is no right or wrong. Anytime that you can create a space where you can hear your own voice, you're doing it right. So for some people, it might be sitting in a bubble bath. Other people, it's drinking coffee. For some people, it might be a walk in nature. But wherever it is that we can create space, like away from the noise, the distractions, the constant bombardment of information that's coming at us, whenever we can create that space, whatever comes up is right. There's no wrong here.
I love that there's no wrong because the tiniest step in any direction is movement.
Exactly.
And the movement is where change comes. And so I love
Exactly.
that piece that you're talking about. It kind of makes you that old saying, like an onion peel. You take off the easiest layer
Yeah.
and you work on
Exactly.
that one. And when you feel like it's gone, you can start on the next. But there's
Right.
no hurry to get to the middle. The
Exactly.
more we understand each step, so,
Yeah.
if you don't do it, if you falsely go, I really don't like orange anymore. I think it's yellow.
Right.
Why? You know, it doesn't
Right.
matter. It's just that's what's making me feel cheerful today. That's
Exactly.
whatever. Things can
Exactly.
change.
Things
Yes.
can change. Exactly. That's so true. Right? And what's true for us one day might not be true for us the next day. Or maybe one day we remember a particular memory as a child that was associated with a color. And all of a sudden that makes us feel warm and fuzzy. Right? So then that becomes our favorite color for that day. Like there's no wrong here. As long as we are just tuned in to what's happening inside of us, as long as we are listening to that voice. And like I said, it can be the tiniest of things, right? Like in my case, be like, well, what would you eat? What do you want for lunch? Well, I should have salad, but what I want is cookie. So, all right, today I'm having a cookie because that's me honoring that voice inside me.
And tomorrow you may go, I don't really want a cookie. I want the salad, and it's
Exactly
okay to
right.
have the salad too.
Exactly right.
So I love it because it is. I mean, one day staying in bed for an extra hour may be the best thing.
Absolutely.
But if I did that every day, I would be a nutcase. I've got to get up and get moving. And so we all
Exactly.
have that thing that makes us tick.
Yeah.
And if it's an extra rest today, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's an
Exactly.
extra
That's
jog,
exactly right.
that's okay.
It's okay too. Yeah.
So all of these things, as we do our self-discoveries, when we start being able to write that new chapter. My new chapter is my favorite color is now yellow. And I'm using color because it's a simple thing, not
Right.
because, or lunch, whatever it is. My favorite lunch today is tacos. It's okay to tomorrow it be pizza or salad or
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Who said that you have to eat lunch anyway? It's just,
Right.
I know who said we had to eat breakfast. That was the government
Right.
because it's good for you.
Right.
But, what is right or wrong? And really, we get to pick that for us.
We can. Exactly. And it's about challenging the ideas, the beliefs, the expectations that we have of ourselves, right? Like, why do I have this? Was it because somebody told me that? Like as a child, my mother said, you must always eat lunch, right? Or whatever it is. And then you can, like, once you become aware of, like, okay, that wasn't even my voice. Like, it wasn't mine to begin with. And then you can say, oh, okay, but my voice says, I never feel good eating lunch. I would much rather just wait and have a larger dinner. Right? But we have to bring that level of awareness to our own thoughts. But most of us are operating from a set of expectations, from a set of beliefs that have got programmed in from life experiences, things people told us, our parents, our teachers, whatever it is. And that's the program that's running. And when we can actually step back and be aware of the fact that, oh, okay, this is the program that's running, that's creating my life. Now I'm going to start questioning it. Now I'm going to say, do I really still believe that? Or something that believe to be true and was true for you 5 days ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago, is it still true for me today? Right. And that's when we become connected to ourselves, but we also become conscious enough to make choices that are actually leading us to greater satisfaction, greater fulfillment, greater joy in our lives.
Well, I love the word you use, like curiosity. Get
Hmm.
curious.
Yeah.
And that's asking yourself the questions and
Right.
asking yourself why. It's okay
Exactly.
to do that discovery why do I think I'm supposed to wake up at 6 every day? I don't know. Where did that come from? Maybe because
Right.
I was at school, maybe because I worked, maybe because it takes me, but why? And
Yeah.
then do I really have to be to work by 8? Do they really
Right.
care? It's like that is
Yeah.
that curiosity that gives us growth and at
Exactly.
least change.
Yeah. And, an example from my own life, and I think this is true for a lot of us, is as women, we are given the playbook, the rules of life real early. Like pretty much from the minute our feet hit the floor on this planet, we're told how to be, how to show up, how to speak. And, I realized that I had been going through all of the motions of life, checking all of the boxes of expectation, in my life, be a good girl, go to school, get good grades, get a good corporate job, work your way up the corporate ladder, stop in there, have a kid in a nice suburban house and do all of that things. And that's what I did. And when my life fell apart, the first question I said to myself was, but I did everything right. I checked all the boxes. Like, how did this go so wrong? And then I realized, I was like, but wait a minute, none of those things on that checklist came from me, right? Like I didn't create those expectations for myself. They were given to me. And nowhere on that list did it say, stop and check in with yourself. Is this really what you want? Is this making you happy? And I feel like it like our culture promotes that, right? And then it's easy for us to get stuck in that, checking the boxes and, following the script.
Oh,
And
but
then we
we
end up in
feel
a
so
place.
successful if I can check a
Well,
box.
exactly. Exactly, right? And then we look around and we're like, "Well, how did I get here?" And you're like, "Oh,
Yep.
because this is the set of boxes that I was checking." Yeah,
And that's why we take us off the bottom of the checklist and put us right
exactly.
at the top and be curious of who we are and what can
Yeah.
I do for me right now. And if we ask to ourselves every moment, you're going to find that you're going to start making choices for you. It might take a while
Yeah.
because we're so used to giving up
Mhm.
our own thoughts and feelings to bring peace and happiness to everybody else.
Make everybody happy. Yep. Yep, so true.
So let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. When we come back, let's kind of delve into not just the curiosity part, but coming up with a plan. How do we
Mm,
change it? When I
mhm.
find out that I don't really like orange, what's the next step? So we'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list the coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LauraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Jennifer, I think this is great. And I know that we could all find things that we might not like anymore or that we really like and want to continue doing. But how do we change? How do we make, like I took a step and I had my cookie for lunch today. How do I do it tomorrow? Because if I eat a cookie every day, that might not be so satisfying.
Mhm. Yeah, and it really comes back to, trying things, like not being afraid to experiment, not being afraid of, making a mistake. So let's go back to our cookie example. Today, my body says, I would really love a cookie for lunch because it will just make me happy, right? I'm feeling a little down and that cookie will make me really happy. So I have the cookie. And instead of going, okay, now the cookie is the new thing and that becomes the new rote plan, right? Tomorrow, I ask myself the same question. What would I like for lunch today? And, maybe I get the answer that I would like salad, right? And then I eat the salad and then I go, actually, my afternoon was much better after the salad because I didn't have the sugar crash. I like that one. But it becomes a process of just getting connected and staying connected with who you are and just keep trying things. So, another example from my own journey was when I was, sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Where do I go from here? My corporate career was no longer available to me. I was kind of like sitting in this abyss. And one day, I was going for a walk and this thought popped in and it said, oh, you should write something. And I was like, but I'm not a writer. That was the first thought that popped in my head. I was like, I'm not a writer. And then I started thinking, well, am I? How do I know I'm not a writer? I mean, I've done strategy decks, but how do I know that I'm not a writer? And I thought, okay, I'll just try it and see what happens. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to write about my own thoughts and feelings. So I did that and I found that I thoroughly enjoyed the process. Right. And I realized that this whole notion that I wasn't a writer came from when I was 6 years old and, I was learning how to print. And my teacher used to say, you're a bad writer. And what she would mean was I was a bad writer because my lines weren't straight and they would go above the little line paper thing. And she'd say to me, you are a bad writer. So I took that to mean I'm a bad writer, as in sentence construction, thoughts, ideas. And I carried that with me for my entire life until I realized that not only do I really like it, I'm actually a really good writer. Right? But that was an example of just getting curious about a belief that I had and then trying it. Right? If I had written something and I was like, "Ooh, this is not for me." And there's been plenty of those, trust me, where I'm like, I've gone down that path and it's not the right one. No harm, no foul. Now I just learned something else about myself. I don't enjoy that thing. I would really not rather have that experience again. Lesson learned. And now we just keep trying other things. So again, we need to remove ourselves from this idea of taking a wrong step or taking a right step or it being, what's expected or whatever it is. It's a process of trial and error. And there's no such thing as failure because all we get is information, right? That we can then use to take the next step. And if we can operate, on collecting information based on curiosity, we're just following the path of ourselves and we're getting to learn about ourselves and we're growing, and we're stepping forward. But the idea is just that we keep moving forward and we can't take a wrong step. There is no right or wrong, there's only information.
And the more I know about myself, the more self discovery I do, the better
Exactly.
decision making I make for me.
Exactly.
Is this what I really want to do? I know I don't like dark places. Hmm, that's a haunted house. It's probably going to be dark. Maybe I don't really want to go to that. It's like, what is
Right.
it? Use those things.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But again, no right and wrong. It's just discovery.
Right.
Yeah.
It's trial and error. We'll try it. We like it. Yay. Try it again. Not,
Yeah.
don't try again. Or do. Maybe you did it wrong or not. Maybe you could have done it different.
Right. But every step is leading you closer to the thing that's going to bring you the joy, the satisfaction, the fulfillment that it is that you want for your life.
And doesn't that sound so beautiful? That
Mhm.
self satisfaction. And how do you have it if you don't know who you are? How can I be
Exactly.
satisfied if I've just been playing the role somebody else gave me? So this is your turn to choose your own role and let it happen.
That is so true. And I say all the time, I call my midlife crisis. The greatest gift of my midlife crisis was learning about who I am, like the discovery of me as a person, not as a wife, a mother, a corporate executive, or any role. It was like me, the woman underneath that, and really like discovering who she is, figuring out that I actually really like her a lot. And what is it that she wants? So she becomes now the guiding factor of, what happens next in my life. I'm building it based on my terms, not based on other people's expectations. So, it's not the path that I necessarily would choose or recommend for anybody to go through a complete life implosion. But the gift in that was self discovery and just finding out the woman underneath it all. And I would not change any of that for the world.
I agree with you. The things that I've gone through have made me the person that I like today.
Hmm.
And I went through many years of not liking who I was
Exactly.
because I
Exactly.
didn't know who I was. I just knew I wasn't me.
Hmm.
I was
Right.
that checklist person. Here, check it
Yeah.
off the box.
Yeah.
Now I am
Exactly.
now married. I now have a kid. I now have a successful career. I now have whatever it is on your uh, I must be one day list.
Right.
You- And then when you step back and go, hmm, I kind of like spending time with myself. Hmm, I like this. Not that I have to be alone all the time, but it's not bad. And at one
Yeah.
time in my life, I hated it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? Is that, we when we're climbing the ladder of expectation, right? We reach the top of the ladder, and this is very true for me. We reach the top of the ladder and then we realize like I'm not even on the right ladder. I'm not even against the right wall. This isn't like who I am or what I want. But we've been so focused on every step of the ladder and checking the box of every expectation. And then, what happens is that when we can't live up to an expectation or it doesn't feel right, we tend to turn it against ourselves. Like there's something wrong with me. When really it's the expectation that was wrong. You were fine the whole time. But and again, I think it's very typical for us as women to turn that into something about ourselves. There must be something wrong with me because I don't really like this thing that's expected. Like let's just say I don't want to be a mother. Well, there must be something wrong with me that I don't want to be a mother, right? There's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing. It's the expectation that's misaligned with who you are.
Yeah, I know that there were times when someone would say, I don't want kids. And I would just like give them that blank stare, like, really?
Yeah.
And then as I got older, it's like, how amazing it is that somebody knew that about themselves
Exactly.
so young and amazed at the insight they had of themselves. Where I was going through, I got to do this, I got to do, and I love my kids and I wouldn't give them away. So I'm not bashing motherhood. I'm wanting to share how wonderful it is when you know you.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true.
So, as we start this self discovery and the curiosity and the experimenting, and we start replaying the things that we like and we let go of the things we don't, is that when our new chapter's built? Or do we completely have chapter after chapter? I mean, I feel like I'm still peeling that onion layer off. There's still
Mhm.
discovery to do. What am I going to be like if I am a widow? What am I going to be like? Because it's roles I haven't had to experiment with yet.
Exactly.
And so I guess maybe I answered my own question. Maybe it's never done.
It's you know what? It's never done. Like, I think there are so many chapters in our lives for us to experience, and we can't foresee them, right? Like, it's just that we know that, oh, this is a chapter now. And, you know, God willing, we live on this planet, for 80, 90, 100, 110 years, right? There's going to be multiple chapters, multiple iterations and versions of who we are. And this is the beautiful part of life is that we get to evolve. Like we were never meant to be the same person from the beginning to the end of our lives. We were meant to evolve. But like so many of us, and including myself in that, like we hang on for dear life to what we think it is that we're supposed to be. But when we can just like let go and evolve with how, life is guiding us or where we're being taken, we find all of these different iterations and different chapters of us. And I think that's so incredibly beautiful that we get to experience all these different dimensions of ourselves.
Well, and what I think is really important is making sure that we are always allowing other people to be their unique self too. So
Mhm.
as much as we're being curious about who we are and we make changes in life, also appreciate that there's differences. And
100%.
just because we were raised that getting married and having children and having children that grow up to be good citizens of the United States makes you a successful person doesn't mean that that is the only successful person. And that if you choose to have no kids, if you choose to have a million of them, if you choose to never get married, or you choose to, I don't care what it is, what religion, what any of it, if we make those choices and we allow other people to
Yeah.
make those choices,
Yeah.
the world is so much easier to get along when you don't expect somebody else to be
Yeah.
just like you.
Yeah, I mean, every one of us as souls comes to this planet with a particular journey that is very individual to us for specific experiences. And our job is really to honor that part of ourselves, to honor those callings and those voices from our soul that's directing us on our very particular and unique journey. So there's no way that you could have two people on the same journey, right? Even though it might look similar or it might be very similar for points in time, right? The journey will be very as unique and individual as that person and that soul is, right? And so allowing us all to live in the fullest expression of our souls, like whatever that means, is like the greatest gift that we could give to each other, right? And I'm recognizing that my path is not going to be your path and is not going to be their path. We're all individual and we can all coexist and we'll move in and out of each other as we go along. But again, I just find it so beautiful that we have this unique journey, like
Mhm.
very, very specific to who we are and the experiences that our soul needs us to fulfill.
And it's okay not to live up to that other standard. I
Mhm.
was talking to a client that is getting their fourth divorce and they're feeling like a failure. I failed 4 times. And I go, no, that was the experiences you were here to choose. Those are the things that gave you strength, that gave you an opportunity to grow beyond, you know. My role might have been to live with the same person forever, might not have,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I can't, you are not a failure either way, Whether you
Right.
get 1,000 divorces or never get married, it's not a failure. It's
Right.
the path that you're on.
Exactly.
So I really have enjoyed this conversation, Jennifer. Can you share with our friend a little bit more about you, what you do, and what is that one thing they could do this week?
Yeah. So I am the founder and creator of Old Chicks No Shit. So Old Chicks KNOW, which was born out of my own midlife reinvention at the age of 50 when I found myself divorced, unemployed, an empty nester, and bedridden with a stress related illness. And, you know, that was a point where I had to figure out how to reinvent my life. Like, my life was a combination of all of the decisions that I had made to that point. And I recognized that I could choose different decisions and create a life that felt more aligned with who I was. And as I started to, I talked about writing. As I started to write and share my story, I started to realize that there were so many women out there who were just like me, who were at these crossroads in these periods of transition where they didn't know where to go or what to do next or what they wanted. And it started a conversation that what I thought was a me problem was actually turned out to be a we problem. We just weren't all talking about it. So the creation of Old Chicks No Shit was really about creating community about all that we are, especially in this midlife chapter, about, it's no longer about, how we look or the shape of our body or, the people pleasing or our ability to have kids. It's about who we have become as people and how our journeys have led us to this incredibly powerful place in our lives where we get to choose to live on our terms, where we, discover our gifts in authenticity and we, um, you know, share those gifts in the world in a way that feels really good and meaningful to us. So this community is there's a mastermind group, there's a podcast, Instagram, Facebook, a free Facebook group, all of that. And really it's just about opening the conversation to how powerful this chapter of our life is in a world where, as soon as you turn 50, it's kind of the beginning of the downhill slope to old age oblivion, and that you like start packing up your your work because you're cruising into the finish line. And I'm like, it's so wrong. Like all we're doing now is entering a new chapter of our lives where we're living on our terms. And that's an incredibly powerful place to be. But we need to see it that way. We need to stop buying into the cultural narrative about the beginning of the end and just see it as a new beginning. So that is the focus of Old Chicks No Shit. It's what I am passionate about. It's what I coach women who are in transition during this chapter of their lives through the mastermind and one-on-one coaching. And really, it's about helping us to see our greatness and then figuring out how it is that we want to use this greatness to make the world a better place. Because, I mean, some of the women in my community are doing freaking incredible things in the world in their second chapter. Dreams that they've had, goals that they've had, that they're, now bringing to life. So, I encourage anybody who is at a position where they're at crossroads or in transition and they're trying to figure out the what's next. It's like we talked about. It's just like stopping everything. Stop thinking that we need to have it all figured out. Stop looking outside of ourselves for the answer and to go inwards for a minute and go, what do I want right now? Start small and work your way forward. Like the question is, what do I want for lunch today? Which, will lead to other things. And as soon as you ask those questions, right, like it begets the next question and it begets the next question. And before you know it, you having answers to things that you didn't even know were inside you, right? I didn't know I was a writer. It was living in there the whole time, right? And this is the path of discovery. And I guarantee you on that path of discovery, we find the joy, the bliss, the fulfillment, the meaning, the purpose that we are all seeking in our lives.
That is so beautiful. And I love that old chicks know shit. I know something. I know I do.
We all do more than we would give ourselves credit for.
And it's okay to share what you know. Some
More
of
than
us have
okay.
been taught to shut up our whole lives, and it's
Exactly.
time
More than
to
okay.
let it out.
Yeah. To
So
find our voice and speak our truth.
that sounds like the perfect one thing. Find your voice. And one more thing this week.
Yeah.
What is it that you haven't been saying, but you can say?
Yeah.
Find
To
your
yourself
voice.
or someone else. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
That's
true.
beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer. I loved the whole conversation. You're very passionate about,
I am.
and you say the same thing I do. It's okay. It's
It's okay.
okay. There's no wrong.
There's
It's
no wrong.
just another movement.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I love it when I find people that resonate so well with the path I've been working on for myself. So thank you. Friend Jennifer and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We're here for entertainment. We can help you along your pathway. Let us know. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.